All right, good morning, everyone. We are at 10:30. The title of the webinar today is Harnessing Your Factory Data for a Competitive Advantage. First of all, thank you for attending this webinar. My name is Jeremy Leffman, Executive Director of the Minnesota State Advanced Manufacturing Center of Excellence, located in sunny Bemidji, Minnesota, which is 100 miles south of Canada. Driving into work today, I had 32 below base temp on my truck, so it was a little bit chilly. My team and I are excited to host this webinar with two seasoned experts in the world of manufacturing. First, a bit about the center. The Minnesota State Advanced Manufacturing Center of Excellence is one of 8 centers in Minnesota as part of the Minnesota State Colleges and University system. We are focused on addressing the talent needs of the advanced manufacturing sector in Minnesota and the upper Midwest. We collaborate with manufacturers, educators, and workforce development providers to promote manufacturing careers, enhance educational programs, and inspire the next generation of manufacturing professionals. We work to ensure that Minnesota's manufacturers have access to the talent they need to thrive, while also providing individuals with pathways to successful and fulfilling careers in advanced manufacturing. A bit about the professionals. So Vivek Saxena is a seasoned manufacturing expert and the CEO of FactoryTwin. With a diverse background spanning from shop floor to supply chain, quality, and C-suite roles, Vivek founded FactoryTwin to help manufacturers unlock the potential of their data. Leveraging advanced data analytics and software automation, FactoryTwin's platform empowers businesses to drive significant efficiencies and optimize operations. Recognized by the National Science Foundation, FactoryTwin's technology is already making a difference in several factories across the U.S. Our other presenter is Eric Nolan, who is the Vice President of Gforce Manufacturing, an aerospace component producer in Savannah, Georgia. He has full P&L responsibility for this AS 9100 certified manufacturing facility, as well as the responsibility to expand the business. Eric champions productivity tools to expand the business efficiently and is known for a collaborative leadership style. Gentlemen, welcome. So a brief overview of the webinar today. First, Vivek is going to speak to you about data analytics, how it's done, and why it's important. Vivek and Eric will also share stories from Gforce on their data analytics journey. Vivek will share some interesting demo videos showing how complex decisions are made better and faster through data analytics. We will provide some time toward the end of the webinar for Q&A from all attendees. We will also be monitoring the chat throughout the webinar and will address any and all questions. Throughout the webinar, feel free to place your questions in the chat, and if necessary, who the question is directed toward. Thank you for joining today, and Vivek and Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for the introduction, Jeremy, and I'm delighted to be here, and always delighted to have a customer in this discussion because they can give their own perspective and not just what we think the word is like. So as Jeremy mentioned, I'm going to start with what is data analytics and how it is done. So you can see my screen. And I'm going to go straight into a couple of slides before we get into very interesting discussion with Eric on how his journey started, how his shop implemented data analytics. Given that it's only a 10 million revenue shop, it's a great test case to see that technology, particularly data analytics and software, it's scalable both ways. It can work with very large companies. We have customers that are billion-dollar companies, and we have customers that are $10 million companies. But it's particularly interesting to see how small manufacturers handle that, because all the buzz out there kind of talks about how big companies are doing it at very little good use cases for small manufacturers. So that is the bulk of the discussion. That is the discussion with Eric. But just to level set the stage, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is factory data to begin with. So if you think about factory data. Here is a picture of what a white collar or a blue collar worker faces every day. You have silos of data. People end up doing a whole bunch of low value add, mundane, repetitive, offline, boring tasks that consume 20% or more of shop personnel time. There's plenty of data out there. There's a study I was reading from Deloitte, for example, where buyers in supply chain organizations in medium to large size factories can spend up to 60% of their time figuring out what they need to do to support production in an efficient and effective manner. So why does that happen? Is because you have all kinds of sources of data which is not integrated. You don't have trust in data. You don't know how good it is. And then you don't have good tools to consolidate and analyze that data. So here are some of the questions that arise every day, whether you're sitting in the front office or whether you're on the shop floor. When will you deliver what? There are questions coming from customers, suppliers, internal queries. You're chasing parts, fixtures, hardwares. You're getting ready for meetings, production meeting, inventory meeting, S&OP meeting, ops review, long-term plans. And all that requires getting data that is good and is shared cross-functionally. So you can go with your Excel sheet and say, I think we need to buy a new piece of equipment. And someone else says, I don't think so. So you can get transparency and cross-functional collaboration in addition to eliminating all these wasteful activities. So here's, just to set the stage for where all the problems are. And then, is that all the data we generally have? Let's see what data is available in a factory. Typically, you'll have IT data and OT data. So you can see on the right, you have IT data. That could be your ERP, your MES, enterprise resource planning, manufacturing execution, product lifecycle management, quality management, all those data streams. And then you have OT data, which could be your PLC, which is in your equipment. Most of the CNC machines, modern times have PLCs. There's SCADA to control multiple PLCs. You may have edge devices. You may have machine sensors. And then you have to come up with, what is truly operational data that is useful to make decisions better and faster. Turns out this is not all the data that a factory has. You also have spreadsheets, numerous spreadsheets in every company we have visited. People keep these spreadsheets in their hard drive. Nobody else knows that. And when a question comes up for capacity planning for the next year, someone pulls out a spreadsheet that nobody has ever seen. So you got a bunch of spreadsheets. Okay, what else? You also have a bunch of tribal knowledge, a lot of information in experienced people's heads. And that could be as simple as knowing that if I'm a shop supervisor, I am the only one who knows that out of the 20 machine operators I have, I only trust 3 of them to do the changeovers or setting a new part, because others are good at monitoring and loading and unloading parts, but they're not good at doing changing overs and setups. So all this needs to be combined to get meaningful data-driven factory. So to make things simple, let's talk about what generally people have. So we're going to ignore all the OT data. And this is particularly relevant for small factories where you may not have edge devices, you may not have sensors on your machines. So let's just say you have Excel sheets, PDF files, MES, ERP, and you want to go from that raw data to data-driven manufacturing. So that's the goal with data and data analytics. And by the way, the subtitle here says, don't let your FOFO turn to FOMO. This is something interesting we found over the years working with lots of factories, that initially when we go to a company and say, why aren't you using data analytics? And they say, well, I don't know how good my data is. I don't have trust in data. Primarily, they're saying, I'm afraid to find out how bad it is. And I'm afraid to find out how duplicative, opaque, and the size of the data is so huge, but we're not using data to improve our factories. And then that is turning to FOMO today when your competitors are starting to use this and you have a fear of missing out. So in any case, going from raw data to data-driven manufacturing, we will boil down to just 4 simple steps. First, find all the operational data is not as simple as it sounds, because we start all our engagements by doing a workshop with our customers' cross-functional teams. And when you sit them around the table and we say, okay, where are standard times? Where are bill of materials? Where are machine capabilities? Where is operator matrix? It's not always clear that everybody even knows where that data resides. So there are all these operational variables sitting in various forms of data, including tribal knowledge, and just doing an inventory of all that data and understanding if there are data gaps is not a simple exercise. But once you find all your data, the next step is to consolidate it, aggregate it, make it into a single source of truth, take out all the duplicativeness, make sure all the data is now available in one place. So that's, a lot of people are working on database managements and, data policies on how to manage their data, how to archive it, how to standardize it. And then the third thing is, just because you have data doesn't mean you have trust in that data. Otherwise, it'll be garbage in, garbage out. So we have the third step, which is data cleansing. Any data scientist will tell you that data cleansing is one of the longest time consuming step in data analytics. The good thing is it only needs to be done once, and then you have to incrementally do it on a regular basis. At FactoryTwin, we actually have this step automated. So then after third data cleansing, now you need to do analytics to be able to see the benefits to things or the sharp KPIs that truly matter, which are revenue, profitability, and cash flow. So let's just keep this in mind as we discuss with Eric about his journey, that the 4 steps. And the first 3 steps are generally referred to as implementation. And the 4th step is actually using the data. So if there are any questions on this, we'll go into the detail. I'm purposely keeping it high level given the diversity of people who have registered for this webinar, ranging from technical colleges, students, faculty members, manufacturers, and software and analytics people. Now, once you have the data, you can do analytics in multiple ways. Here's one example. If you look at the right, a notional graph showing a given analytical tool can absorb or deal with certain amount of operational complexity. That's on the y-axis, and on the x-axis is operational insights, whether it's descriptive, predictive, or prescriptive, and how much usefulness is there in the analytics output. So I'm giving some examples here. For example, if you just had a sensor on a machine that is looking at whether the machine is up or down, that's a machine monitoring application. It has some predictive capability. It can deal with very little complexity. It's saying speed and feed at most, but maybe it's just saying the machine is up or down. Then you have generic visualization tools. If you have ERP systems, most people have dashboards using, their standard methods like Click, Crystal reports, or you tell your IT guys, put up a dashboard for me, please. And you get some visualization. It's only descriptive. It only says, as is, what is today's condition in the shop. It has no predictive capability, no prescriptive capability. Then you have generic analytics tools like Power BI and Tableau. And these are tools which have some predictive capabilities. They can handle some amount of operational complexity, etc. But really, the ultimate in factory analytics is factory digital twins, which is a computer representation of your factory, not a 3D rendering, but all the data is reflected in the digital twin. It's connected real time with the data stream. So it's connected with your ERP, it's connected with your sensor, it's connected with your Excel sheets. And as parts are moving on the shop floor, supplier parts are coming in, customer parts are being delivered, parts are going on hold because of quality issues. All that can be seen real time. So factory digital twin does orders of magnitude better than any of the options out there. And this is what at FactoryTwin we do. Generally, this digital twin technology is available for the largest companies from the largest vendors that do multi-million-dollar, multiple-year projects. We target small and medium-sized businesses, and we do that in a matter of weeks, bring the same technology to small and medium-sized businesses and do it in a matter of weeks and ROI within a year. So that's the power of Factory Digital Twin, and it's now available to small and medium-sized businesses. Again, on the left, you can see there's a real-time connectivity. It automatically checks for the data integrity. It does predictive analytics, continuously learns from what is going on and what is the history to predict better future. What's going to happen 12 months from now in terms of capacity constraints on my already highly utilized machines, or what's going to happen 3 months from now around Thanksgiving when 10 of my operators are going to go on hunting trips. How do I deal with that? All that is built into this very interesting user-friendly capability, which is Factory Digital Twins. If you want to know more about Factory Digital Twins, I'll encourage you to look at publications that came out, very nice publications that came out last year from National Academy of Science and Engineering. And if you Google on their website for Factory Digital Twin, it talks about that. They actually go a lot more on digital twins than on Factory Digital Twins, but that's a good source if you wanted to go deeper into what these technologies are. So I'm going to go over a couple of case studies and to emphasize the fact that the results from factory analytics are big. It's not incremental, half a point there, 1 point there. You see big double-digit improvements. So one of the examples here is a company we worked with in Michigan with 3 sites, and they were always having too many overdue line items, late behind customer requirements. And they started using FactoryTwin sales and operations planning module. And within 12 months of that, with the same resources, they showed 15.6% higher throughput with same resources, no extensive hiring, no machine bought. Just you're preparing better, you're using your resources more optimally, you're keeping your inventory more optimally, not just a whole bunch of inventory, but what you need, the right inventory, and you're allocating your operator skills in an optimized fashion. So that's a huge jump, not 1 or 2%, but 15.6% improvement in less than a year. That's very common. Again, I'll refer you to some government sites. There's a site called MXD, which is Digital Manufacturing and Cybersecurity Institute based in Chicago. They have a lot of information on the benefits from coming out of digital twins, and they typically claim about 20% improvement is common for any KPI. So this is very consistent with the industry-wide data that we find in our customer base as well. Similarly, working with another customer in Oklahoma, we showed in 3 months engagement, and within 6 months, they showed 30% improvement in their cash flow. Again, showing that double-digit improvement is very common. So 2 references I would give you. One is MXD, the other is CESMI, CESMII, which is also DOE initiative and is based in California, and they do a lot of factory analytics and digital twin advocacy, and they have some training material available as well. So with these 2 examples, we're going to jump into the heart of the discussion and welcome Eric, and to talk about his company's journey in this realm. Eric, welcome.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks so much, Vivek.
And thank you for taking the time. It was a delight to work with you when we implemented FactoryTwin in Q4 of last year. So you haven't really realized all the benefits that FactoryTwin offered, but it's a great opportunity for you to talk about the journey, what it took to get started, what it took to overcome some of the barriers internally, and how was it to working with us. So very first question, just so people can know you better, can you describe for our audience what your factory does?
Absolutely. So Gforce Manufacturing is actually a division of Goodwill in Southeast Georgia. So I know you may be thinking, Goodwill, what do you mean Goodwill? Yes, the Goodwill you're thinking of with the thrift shops, that's who I report to. We're a division of Goodwill Southeast Georgia. Our mission is to help people with barriers to employment. So we focus on people that are returning from incarceration, and just help them give a good experience in aerospace manufacturing. So at Gforce Manufacturing, we are a component manufacturer for the aerospace industry. We're AS9100 certified, and we make parts for business jets in the Savannah area. And we're looking to grow to also supply commercial airplanes as well as military applications is kind of where we're headed next.
And can you maybe just touch upon your growth goals and what prompted you to start looking into factory analytics as a tool?
For sure. Yeah. So we've grown a good bit. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years, and we've gone from about a $4.5-5 million operation to now at about $10 million. But we're looking to grow exponentially. So we're looking at 20 to 30 million in the next 5 or 6 years. So kind of what got me into the data analytics, I actually heard Vivek speak at an Aviation Week conference back in 2022. And I actually found my note from that conference. Vivek said, and the data may have changed. I doubt it has, but Vivek said that 13% of factory data is utilized. And that stuck with me. I wrote it down, and I brought that information back to our team at Gforce, and it's the truth. I mean, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money collecting data, but are we using that data to make decisions? If we're not, why are we collecting the data? So, and that was actually, I think, an interview question when I started my when I was applying for my current role. Is, we're having trouble keeping up with operators inputting the data, and my answer to the question was, well, do you need the data? If you don't need it, then why are you collecting it? But nevertheless, we do collect a lot of data, and it's being unutilized. It's wasted. Data is not free. It costs money. It costs money to input it. It costs money to collect it. So it's a waste otherwise. So, and our goal is we want to be able to make good decisions quickly based on data. Anybody can make a fast decision, and maybe it turns out, maybe it doesn't. And anybody can take a long time collecting all the required information to make the best decision. But then by the time you make the decision, it might be too late. So we're looking to grow our operations. We don't want to significantly increase our overhead. So we need the tools to be able to make good decisions quickly. And that's where data analytics comes into play.
Great. That's a great intro to why you got interested in it. And so as you're looking into factory data analytics, let's say go back a year or so, you're looking at various alternatives. And how did what did you consider? What were the criteria for selecting a solution? Did you try to do it yourself internally? Could you let us know how that decision went?
Yeah, sure thing. So we actually we're down the path, working with our internal IT team, which at Gforce we don't have our own IT folks. We share it's a shared resource across Goodwill in Southeast Georgia. So we were just eating their time trying to create these Power BI dashboards to give us the data that we were looking for operator performance. How are we keeping up with our daily production goals, those sorts of things. And it's all information that's collected. It's all within our ERP system. But we had no good way to pull it out. And we were meeting several times a month and really just not getting very far in getting something useful with these Power BI dashboards. And if we had hired an expert in Power BI, that's an option, but we just didn't have one. So we were kind of learning on our own, and it was a real challenge for us. And then there's also larger companies like Siemens, et cetera, that have digital twin software, but not necessarily marketed towards smaller manufacturers like us.
Okay, and as you were thinking about comparing this with what we ended up doing with you, in terms of requirements, affordability, practicality, user friendliness, were you grading all the options on all those criteria, or are there something I missed also?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the first thing we wanted was, hey, we're trying to get these dashboards. Can you do it? And then um, the other side of it was the analytics side, and um, that's where our future use is going to be. We needed a solution for what we were trying to do on our own, and FactoryTwin was able to meet that need with dashboarding within their software. Um, but we also know that if we're going to grow as an organization, we need to be able to be smarter and faster, and that's where the rest of the modules come in through FactoryTwin.
Okay, now let's talk about some of the details. So as you started working um, in your analytics journey, how long did it take to implement the software? And one of the concerns many manufacturers have when they work with a vendor like us, that too much of their own company's time gets tied up. And like, everybody has bad experiences implementing ERP, where their experts get tied up, so many hours a week for so many months, sometimes over a year. So given all that, what was your experience in terms of analytics implementation? How long did it take to do it? And what kind of time commitment was required from your team from various functions?
Yeah, it is terrifying. I mean, it's like when you know you need help, you could ask for help, but then you got to explain to somebody what you need help with. And by then, the fear is that I'm going to spend more time explaining what I need. I may as well just do it myself. But the reality is, we were already trying to do it ourselves, and we were really struggling. Um, so that was a legitimate fear that we had, that it's we're going to spend a lot of even more time trying to explain this to somebody else, and then we've got costs on top of that. Um, Now our experience was, the implementation time took about 10 weeks. And a lot of that, I mean, it could have gone faster, but a lot of that was on us, and we have a third party ERP partner um, that we're struggling with responsiveness from them and getting the data sent over to FactoryTwin. So once FactoryTwin was able to get the data in the correct format, like I said, implementation was about 10 weeks. It could have been quicker, had it not been for the holdup from our external source. And then internally, uh, calculated about 26 hours of meeting time on our end. And the feedback from my team in meeting with the FactoryTwin team was overwhelmingly positive. We didn't have those 26 hours, weren't 6, 7 of us meeting in a room every time for 26 hours. It was an hour with me, an hour with our quality manager, an hour with our technical director, an hour with our plant manager. And the cool thing was, in working with FactoryTwin, is we were able to explain things, and just FactoryTwin was able to understand what we were saying. Yeah, I've heard it said, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. And with FactoryTwin, we were able to just, hey, this is what we have, this is what we're doing. And FactoryTwin it just clicked. They have the data knowledge as well as the manufacturing experience combined. It just made the implementation really smooth.
Well, thank you for that endorsement. I think it is interesting to note that when you say 26 hours, that's the sum total of man hours of all
Mhm.
functions. So it's
Right.
really not that um, onerous as some people make it out to be. And I think the reason we are able to do that simply is because we're not just software vendors. We understand operations. And so whether for manufacturers out there, when you're talking about analytics or any software tools, it's important, whether or not you engage with us is irrelevant, that you should be looking for both data science, computer science knowledge, as well as operational knowledge. Because otherwise, that's why you spend so much time with ERP vendors. That takes you hours every week for several months, right? For multiple companies, multiple functions. So that's a very big learning there. Um, so given that the implementation phase was relatively, quick, I would say 10 weeks for the whole platform to be implemented. Did you find, in terms of data cleansing, data gaps, were there many major discoveries that you weren't aware of before you got into this?
Not a lot of major gaps in the data. The biggest thing that we have, and we'll continue to struggle with, is for us with operator performance, clocking in and out of jobs, and that's something that's just making the hardware available for our operators. But FactoryTwin's able to implement our ERP data as well as data from our HR timekeeping software, so we can see those gaps. Okay, this is how long an operator was clocked into a job. This is how long they actually worked. Okay, did they really only work 1 hour out of a 10-hour shift? No, probably not. There's something going on there, and that allows us to see accurately operator performance as it relates to standard times. But overall, I would say, I mean, our data was fairly clean. We've got some work to do in segmenting our data. For example, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but our job work centers, we never really had a need to separate the different work centers. If it's fabrication, it's fabrication. It all kind of charges the same. But if we want to know, okay, how are our standard times for one area of fabrication versus standard times for another area of fabrication, we've got to segment that data within our ERP system, so that then FactoryTwin can segment the data.
Another interesting thing I think we should mention is anytime you embark on a new initiative like this, there is a culture change aspect to it, which requires leadership and collaboration. And at Gforce, to be able to do this implementation so quickly, we were very impressed with how you orchestrated and brought people together. There were complexities. A lot of your operations are manual operations, and so it's not like data is coming straight from a machine. And you have operators. When we were looking at details of operator skill matrix, some operators have very flexible schedule as opposed to others. So you're giving all those things to your operators to get the most out of them. Can you say a little bit about how your leadership style, how you encourage collaboration? Why was the culture change manageable as you went from the old way of doing business to data-driven way of doing business?
Mhm. Yeah, sure. And it should be said about my leadership team at Gforce. I mean, a lot of very experienced folks, and with a lot of time at Gforce, and a lot of the frustrations that I have are common amongst the team. I mean, whether you're new to manufacturing or have been in manufacturing for a long time, the frustrations are clear. When everybody's experienced somebody leaving, and as Vivek said earlier, all that travel knowledge goes with them. That's a challenge. Everybody's experienced having to wait on somebody from coming back from being sick or whatever else in order to get their spreadsheet populated. So when the frustrations are so common and widespread and shared, if a tool or a solution is presented, it's an easy sell. It's
Yeah,
I'm not a sales guy. I'm responsible for business development. But when something makes sense, it just makes sense, and you don't have to sell something that just makes sense. Just
that's
needing
great. I think I do want to commend you for the culture you have developed at Gforce, which is very collaborative and open to looking into, what the problems are and openly talking about it. And I think that helps in identifying the problems. You're halfway there, right? And then you have to solve the problem. So I was very impressed with the way you have developed the culture, and
Thank
the
you.
culture change piece, the way you managed was very impressive. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the benefits you have seen so far. clearly, we finished implementation around Thanksgiving, maybe a little after Thanksgiving. So you've had a few weeks. What benefits you've seen so far in the last few weeks, and what prompted you to opt for the next module of FactoryTwin?
Sure. Yeah. So the first implementation was the validator as well as the dashboards that we had asked for. And the biggest benefit immediately was, hey, these dashboards that we've been working on for months, we have them now. It's amazing. So that's the biggest. We're able to track daily production versus goals. Whereas previously we're manually counting details. How many details did this line make? How many details did that line make? We've got whiteboards with dashes on them with how many parts people are making, and now it's in our dashboard. We can track operator performance versus standard time and really see, okay, do we have certain product lines that maybe the standard times are just out of whack and that just wasn't visible to us before, and maybe we're not charging appropriately for this work because, hey, we thought this operation was a 10-minute operation, but for the past 2 years it's taken 40 minutes per operation. And then we can see if an operator is improving, or maybe something's going on in their life that's making work difficult for them. So we're able to reward those that are, hey, we asked you to step up and you stepped up. We can see your productivity over time. In our operation, it's a lot about pace, pace and quality. So I've said it before, I can write my name, and it could take me 10 minutes to write my name if I go slow enough, or I can write my name really fast. It's the same work. It's just a different pace. So, keeping up that pace and being able to see how operators are performing, we can track how long it takes on average for somebody to get up to speed. I've been asked that ever since I started this job from our CEO and other folks, CFO. I want to hire somebody. How long does it take for them to get up to speed? 3 months? I don't know. I mean, just throw out a number. You're looking for a number, I'll give you one. But is it backed with data? No, absolutely not. I pulled it, right out of my back pocket there. But feeling confident in answers to questions and decisions that we're making. That's kind of the immediate. And then another big deal. One of the things we struggled with was errors in our sales orders. So we have purchase orders from our customer. We enter those purchase orders as sales orders in our ERP system. But if there's a discrepancy, or if there's a purchase order change and a date change that's not caught as a sales order, we end up making a part early, late, wrong quantity. All those things are expensive. And if it makes it to the customer at the wrong time or the wrong quantity or whatever else, then that costs us and it costs them. And we don't want that.
Cool. And I'm starting to see that your factory is starting to look proactively towards the future with the new sales and operations planning module you just implemented to use all the past data to predict the future. What are your expectations from that? And if you have looked at that tool yet, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot in the SNOP module. The few things that I know we'll use for sure, and I'm sure we'll learn more as we get deeper into it. At first is headcount management. We're fortunate in that we have purchase orders out through 2027, 2028. So we have a lot of visibility, and knowing that there's change in that as well, but we have a lot of visibility on what our future demand is going to be, but how does that affect headcount? When do we need to hire? As I said earlier, we're able to see, on average, how long it takes somebody to get up to speed. By planning out that headcount over time for budgeting season and planning hiring events, all those things, as well as capacity planning. Are we going to run out of space? Do we have enough lines to do the work for the future demand? The aerospace industry, if you've if you've been around it, can be cyclical. So you have to be prepared when things get busy. If you're not keeping up, somebody else will. And if we lose business, it's bad for me, but it's bad for our community as well, because we are, kind of an integral part to our community in the Southeast Georgia area. We're looking to increase our impact. We want to help more people, and if we make bad decisions, we can help less people, and that's no good for me, and it's no good for anybody else. But a lot of these things is things that like I said, anybody can make a good decision, but being able to back those decisions up with data and then verify their effectiveness after the fact, that's what we're looking for.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I will just repeat something you said. If you're not doing it, someone else will. So that's what brings to our topic, which is harnessing data for competitive advantage. If you're not doing it, somebody else will and take your business. So with that, thank you, Eric. And I'm going to go and share two quick videos. One is about 1.5 minutes. The other is probably a couple of minutes before we jump into Q&A. So let me launch the video. The videos don't have audio. I'll just speak as the video runs. And can you see, hopefully you can see it now. So the first video, so let me just set the basics for what we're trying to do here. So in a factory where you're making multiple products with multiple components going into multiple finished goods, sometimes it's even confusing for the smallest factory which components go into which finished goods, and then you have to call people up. So you remember what we said about non-value repetitive tasks, how you can make it so simple that everybody has access to that data. So we have built something which is called using data analytics and visualizing not just the bill of material trees, but a bill of material forest, which has all the parts you make. And if there's a component that goes into multiple finished goods, you can see it right away. So here's an example. This is about a 1:30 video. So you go into the bill of material and you can identify any part. You can color code and say, here are my purchase part. All the blue parts are purchase parts, and all the red parts are finished good parts. And I can look at a part and see what goes into that. I can click on that part and go on-demand value stream mapping. And as you can see, for any part, you can go and see value stream mapping. This is powerful. If you think about how value stream mapping is done today, and I've done it on the shop floor, I see it being done today. It takes hours of experts sitting around a table, and over multiple weeks, you put yellow stickies on the wall. It takes hundreds of hours of work, and then it's something that you take a picture and try to put in an Excel sheet, and now you start with the next part or the next part family. Here you have data residing in your ERP or MES system, and all this analytics tool does, it takes that information out and gives you the value stream map on demand. And so your team can focus on improving the value stream, what the future state is going to be rather than what it is today. Also look at some more details on, what are the queue time Paretos, what are the cycle time, what are the variations. If you have a big blue box, that means you have a Six Sigma opportunity. If it's a high value, you have a lean opportunity. You can look at the demand pattern for every part and see why there is lumpiness. You can look at the resource utilization map to see reds mean there's capacity constraints. Now let's look at a bottom level purchase part. Again, you click on that part and it gives you everything you need to know about that part, starting with if there is a data gap. And if there's no data gap, then you have trust in the data and see what it's telling you. It's telling you supplier historic performance, comparing multiple suppliers and their performance, unit price variation over time, and multiple suppliers, how they compare with each other, all in one place. You can do material shortage analysis, where your order points are, where your consumption points are. All these calculations are very complex, and people keep Excel sheets and takes hours for a part or two. And here you have it all in one place. And so that's planned for every part. That's a very powerful tool. Everything you need to know about your finished goods or component in one place, from value stream mapping to the demand, the consumption, the delivery, and purchase points. So that eliminates a whole bunch of work. And as I said, value stream mapping is the start of lean manufacturing, lean implementation, and you don't have to worry about taking all that effort. I'm going to jump to the second video, and this video is another common problem that people face that relates to long-term capacity planning. And Eric mentioned, for example, he's using sales and operation planning process, which is a generic process across all industries for manufacturers, looking at how to do long-term planning so you know whether you need to manage headcount a certain way, maybe shift structure a certain way, maybe buy a new piece of equipment, or how to mitigate those potential bottlenecks that may arise. So when you launch that sales and operation planning tool, you can get into all those details and see upfront what is going to happen in the future and get prepared for it. And that is one of the reasons why our Michigan customer was able to use this to get 15.6% better throughput. So you look at your factory and you can say, okay, let's find out where the bottlenecks are. So you can see a heat map where on the y-axis you have all the resources, the labor resources or the machine resources, and on the x-axis you have timeline. And it tells you any red means you have a bottleneck possibility. So you can see for this CNC labor, you have chronically bottlenecked this operation. So we need to understand what causes this and how do we fix this. You don't have to make guesses. You can do a simple calculation. So we'll first do a calculation that is very common and easy to do, which is brute force. So you go into the tool and you say, I'm going to add a machine for the bottleneck operation, and I'm going to select what date is going to be available. Then I'm going to add operators. And given the addition of operators and machine, I should be able to mitigate that bottleneck. So you run it, you compare the two scenarios, and then brute force versus baseline, it tells you easily how you have dealt with the bottleneck problem. So you can see, here you go, you have eliminated those reds and taken care of the bottleneck. However, that's a very ineffective brute force solution because you have to buy machines and you have to hire people. Both are not simple things. So there's another way to do it, and you can experiment that on the data analytics tool you have, and let's call it cost-effective method. And again, you start with that, and first thing you notice is there's another labor group which is underutilized. Why can't we cross-train them? Then you look at what is the demand driver for that bottleneck, and you see there are 3 customers. Can I negotiate with them to level load demand? Okay, good. Maybe I can run some overtime. So I'm going to run a new scenario. This time I'm going to assume that some of the saw operators are trainable into the CNC. I'm going to level load demand, which is the line items, which reflect the demand in your ERP system. And after customer negotiations, I can change the due dates, and I can add maybe some new shifts or a overtime. And I can build this simulation, let's call it cost effective this time, and compare with the baseline. And now when you compare the two, you see again, you have eliminated all those bottlenecks. But this time, it's not brute force. You're not buying machines. You're not hiring people. You have taken care of the bottleneck through other means. And that's the power of doing these experiments yourself before implementing something. So I'm going to stop sharing this. These were the 2 videos I wanted to touch upon. We have about 10 minutes, and I'll open it for Q&A.
At this time, you all can be unmuted or unmute yourself if that's an option. We can unmute you. If you have any questions, if you prefer not to speak, you can certainly put that in the chat, and then we will bring those questions forward to Vivek and Eric. So while you are all thinking about your questions, I'll just pose a couple questions to Vivek and Eric. Vivek, do you find smaller manufacturers easier to work with or larger scale?
I think a small manufacturing company with the right leadership mindset is definitely way better to work with than much larger companies for multiple reasons. In much larger companies, there are very additional organizational complexities, and the time it takes to get everyone's attention. Everybody's busy doing multiple things. There are multiple initiatives going on. Now, as I said, we have implemented analytics at very large companies, $1 billion company. In fact, we work with one company which is $60 billion company pre-pandemic. So we definitely prefer to work with small and medium-sized companies because once they make the decision, they're also very sensitive to affordability and their time. So they want to get the most out of where they decide to invest their time and money in. And so that makes the whole collaboration much quicker. And so, yeah, the answer to your question is we definitely prefer to work with small and medium-sized companies.
Very good. Please keep in mind, you can certainly enter your questions in the chat for Vivek and Eric, or you can unmute yourself and ask them the question directly. I'll just pause for a minute and see if there's any questions. If not, I have a couple more questions for you.
If I could just add to what Vivek said about the difference between small and large companies. I worked at a large manufacturer before I came to Gforce and Goodwill. And it can be tricky navigating the large companies too, because I ran a small team at a large manufacturer, and we had some leeway in our own budget, and we could have implemented FactoryTwin within our team at this large manufacturer, but it would have been a team of 5. So yeah, 10,000 employees, but you may be implementing it with a small team within that group, and I mean, maybe you get buy-in with the rest of the organization, and maybe you don't. It's tough to navigate.
Very good. So Eric, given that all shops end up working with IT service providers, what were your concerns embarking upon the project with FactoryTwin?
Yeah, there's definitely concern there working with third parties, because you're dealing with, hey, I've got this, service provider as our partner with our ERP system, and now I have another service provider with FactoryTwin. They can't both work in silos; they have to work together, and that's FactoryTwin was really helpful in that. I mean, they've had meetings with our ERP partner separate from us, and that's great. We don't need to be involved in everything. If the two of you need to work together to figure it out, then that's good. FactoryTwin was super helpful and coordinated a lot of those teams. Big shout out to Caden and Ryan on his team there.
Oh, cool. Caden is actually here, so he'd be happy to hear that. Very cool.
I have a question.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, since you're module based, do you see a commonality or recommendations on where do people start, or do you see a commonality in that as far as when you're getting into FactoryTwin? What's the best place to start?
I think as I mentioned, FactoryTwin, like any digital twin solution, is very comprehensive. It can help you with any pain points. What you have to decide is, what is my biggest pain point? Because that's what will get most traction with your team, that they'll say, yes, it's worth investing my time. So we are working with companies that say, we don't have a good scheduling algorithm, dynamic scheduling algorithm, because our MES or ERP spits out a schedule. So we know what part goes on what machine with what operator, and then 3 operators call in sick, 2 machines go down, 1 supplier part doesn't show up, customer changes priorities, 1 part goes on quality hold. Now what do I do? So giving that more robust and dynamic scheduler may be the biggest pain point reliever for this company. So I would start with that. If I'm happy with my scheduler, I'm happy with my day-to-days execution, and I'm more concerned about planning, longer term planning, because I know I'm going to ramp up without, for example, that was Eric's motivation. He wants to grow, and he wants to grow as he scales up the business. He doesn't want to scale up the overhead in the same ratio. He doesn't want to go from 2 buyers to 6 buyers if he goes from X revenue to 3X revenue. So having a tool like this is more like a productivity tool, not a day-to-day execution tool, and you can select what module works best for you. There's also, you don't have to buy modules, right? I mean, I shouldn't be selling just FactoryTwin. There are analytic solutions out there that can meet your need without having to do something as comprehensive as FactoryTwin. As an example, if you're just starting on a digital journey, one of the things you may be interested in knowing how good your data is and how complete your data is, then I would start with the factory validator module, because as soon as it connects with all the data sources, it spits out, you got a bill of material incomplete for this part number. And by the way, you need that to make that part 3 months from now. So it's good time to go and put in that bill of material in your part master in your ERP system. Or you have a standard time missing, a setup time missing, or a process time missing for a certain operation for heat treat for this part, although the rest of the steps do have standard times available. So I would say manufacturers should be driven by what their immediate pain points are that'll get their teams focused on using data analytics, because I keep saying culture change is the biggest piece of this. We can install any nifty software we want. If people are not going to use it, they don't see value in it, it's useless. So go by your pain point, and technically speaking, having a factory validator to check your data integrity, gaps and inconsistencies of data would be the first step. Does that answer your question, Keith?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you for taking the time. I'm sure Jeremy has some parting thoughts here, but I would like to thank all the participants and people who are going to be watching this video later, maybe not live. And please feel free to contact us or Eric if you have any questions. Thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you, Vivek and Eric. And thank you to all our attendees today. The valuable content you shared was truly inspiring, and it's something when I worked in manufacturing definitely was needed. In the next few days, you all will be receiving a follow-up email with the presenter's contact information, a link to the webinar recording, and a brief 3-question survey. Thank you for supporting this center and innovative webinars like this. Have a great day.